Hey guys, and welcome back to the online learning space. Today what we're going to look at creating is a simple badge made in Illustrator, and we'll save it as a vector graphic. So the first thing that you need to do is we need to open up Illustrator. We'll make a new document, 1200 by 1200 pixels, and we will have some guides that will help us find the center of this document. So to create some guides, we're going to go click on rulers and show rulers. You then want to right click and drag your guide so that it fits on your page. Now the guides, they kind of snap once they find the middle point. So now once you have the middle point, now we can start to actually create the shape. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create an ellipse. And an easy way to do this is to hold Alt and Shift while you create the circle from the center and draw your circle out. Keep in mind where your layers are. We're not going to fill this in with any color just yet. The next thing that you need to do is you need to grab a rectangle tool and draw a rectangle that just fits inside of your circle. So now you have the rectangle and also the circle. What we then need to do is we need to create the outside. So how do we do this? We grab the star tool, okay, and we draw a star. Now, if you hold Control and drag your mouse out, you can now increase the spokes of the star or make them smaller. Or if you hold Shift, you can, make the whole thing bigger. So we're going to do that same process again. I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to hold Alt and Shift, and I'm going to drag out. So now that I have my star, which is bigger than the size of my circle, I'm now going to fill them in with color. So the first one I'm going to fill in with color is I'm going to fill this circle. So to fill it with a color, we go and grab our color palette up here, fill that in with a color. I'm going to highlight my rectangle and I'm going to fill this in with white, and I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. And then finally I have my star, which I'll also fill in with black. I'm going to make sure that the rectangle is the top layer so that it's visible on top of the other shapes. So now once we have our basic design, okay, we now need to put in another ellipse that will give us a outline. And this is quite simple. All we're going to do is grab the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold Alt and Shift again. I'm going to draw a circle, but it's not going to go all the way to the edge. Okay, now I don't want this to have a fill, so I'm going to change it to no fill, but I want it to have a white stroke of 2. Underneath that circle, we're going to create another stroke, which is a dotted stroke. So to do that, again, ellipse tool, we're going to do the same thing. This time I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to put the dashed stroke on the outside. So you need to click on stroke, your stroke settings, click on dashed line, and when you click away, now you've created a dashed stroke. So moving on, now we're going to add some text. Now we'll put some text in the middle, and we'll put some text that will go around in an arc and some text over here. So to create the text, and please be very careful with your fonts. Alright, don't use more than 3 different fonts, and have a think about what kind of fonts you are going to use. I'm just going to increase the size of the font. Now the font that I'm using here will be in the description in the links below. So now I'm just going to align these things, and if you don't have the align tools over there or up here, you can go to Windows, Align, and it will pop up there for you. Make sure you know what you're going to, what text you're going to write in your badge, And then what we're going to do is we're going to create two ellipses, and then we're going to make the path of the text follow the ellipse. So I'm going to draw a circle out from the center. Alright, this will be for the first word. Now we don't want any fill on that. And so now if I click on my text tool, and if I click on type on a path tool, if I click on the circle, I can now, once I change the color to white, I can now write on that path. So I'm just going to make the font size a bit smaller, and I'm also going to change the font. Now don't worry if your text is a little bit off center, because what we can do is we can just rotate the circle and it will move the text along. So I'm going to repeat the process to write something down here. So I'm going to make another circle. Okay, so this one may be a little bit bigger. Change the fill to no fill. Now again, you click on the path tool, and when you write, you will notice that the text is on the other way around. So what we need to do is we need to flip that. Now to flip that, you need to go to the type on a path, and you type on a path options, and you want to click flip, click OK, and now the text is on the other side of the circle. So now I've got the top and the bottom text, and it's looking pretty good, and I just want to put one more word in there. So back to the T tool. Okay, so now once you have all of your text where you want it, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on my rectangle layer, okay, and I'm just going to add a stroke. So if I add a stroke, I can actually see it now. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a small ribbon effect that will come out of the side. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to zoom in, and I'm just holding Alt and scrolling on my mouse wheel. I'm going to go and click another rectangle tool, and I'm just going to I'm just going to draw a rectangle that looks something like that. Okay, now don't worry about it being so precise on both sides, because we're going to grab a guide and we're just going to put the guide on top of that rectangle, so that when we do the same thing, or when we copy and paste to the other side, we're just going to keep it in line with the guide. Okay, so now I'm just going to move this in a few presses of the right arrow on the keyboard. Now you notice when I do that, that these two rectangles are on top of this rectangle. So what we need to do now is we need to grab these rectangles and we need to make sure that they go underneath our original rectangle. So just move them down the layers until it looks something like that. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to create a shadow effect. So we're going to put in a little bit of black in there to create a shadow. So we're going to grab the pen tool, okay, and I'm just going to zoom in. So I just want to create a triangle in that section and then just fill it in with black. And I'm going to do the same for the other side. So pen tool. Alright, create a triangle. And there we have it. So now our ribbon has a little bit of shadow and detailing. So the next thing that we need to do after that is we need to create these little, fan ribbon things, which will add to our ribbon and just make it look a little bit better. So to do that, that's quite simple. We're just going to grab the polygon tool, and I'm just going to draw out a polygon, press down on my keyboard until I get a triangle, And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold shift to make sure that it's straight. I'm going to fill that in with black, squash it down a little bit to make it a small little triangle like that. I'm also going to rotate it this way. So I'm just going to test if it fits nicely. I can maybe make it a touch bigger so it looks something like that. So now once I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate that, and I'm going to repeat this process. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them in this section over here, and I'm just going to make sure that it fits inside. Now again, we want these things to go underneath. Firstly, we're going to group these things, so we're going to right click and go group, go back to our layers, and just make sure that these group of layers go underneath the rectangle. You don't want to put it underneath too far because you actually want it to be underneath this section. Once you have something like that, okay, you can then just copy and paste it and do the same on the other side, but we will just rotate it around. So you have to move the layers until it gets underneath it, just like that. And you just want to make sure that the black doesn't go over here. If these things are too small, we can always change them a bit later and make these rectangles, you know, a bit bigger. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the pen tool and we want to create an anchor. Okay, once we've created the anchor, you then want to grab the direct selection tool, click on the anchor, and just pull it in slightly until it, you know, looks something like that. Now if these things are too big, then we can make them a touch smaller. So now we're going to create the anchor on the other side. So find out where you want the line to start, and when we grab our direct selection tool, you can now drag it in. We're just going to keep the alignment the same. Okay, so now we've created our ribbon. What we're going to do now is we're going to create an arc for our ribbon. So to create an arc for the ribbon, we need to highlight all the sections of the ribbon. So that includes those pieces and these extra pieces over here. So we're going to go to Effect, Warp, and Arc, and we probably want to arc it maybe 5% or maybe even a little bit more. Okay, so once you're happy with that, okay, I'm just going to move this text up. So once you're happy with that, so I'm just going to increase the stroke on these objects by maybe adding a little bit more weight to it. So now it looks a little bit more prominent. And then the last thing that we're going to need to do is we just need to fill up this area over here. So what you can do is you can just add some shapes. So if I go to my star tool, and if I find the star that I like, so a star like that, I'm going to take off the stroke and I'm just going to move it in the center, make it a bit smaller, just duplicate it. So now I've put my stars in there and it's looking pretty good. The other thing that we can do is we can make the edges of these points a little bit rounded. So if we click on that, and if you go to Effect, Stylize, and then Round Corners, and if you click Preview, if you change the amount, the radius, you can see that they're making the corners a little bit more rounded. So anyways, that is a simple guide to how to create your own kind of retro-y kind of badge. Now you can go back and change the colors, you know, if you really want, okay, but just, you know, if you are changing the colors, please make sure you have a color scheme in mind. When you save your file, save it as either an EPS or an SVG file, and also save it as an Illustrator file. Now once you take that, this EPS, you can put it into Photoshop and you can enlarge it and make it smaller, and you will not lose quality. That's the good thing about these kinds of vector graphics. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.